shark repellent bat spray.
You saw that title. Dumbest scene in Batman movie history. Well, I bet you're expecting a scene from the infamous Batman and Robin, with the loaded crutch, the deep-set butt cracks, and the surprise armored nipples. Maybe it'll be one of Schwarzenegger's ridiculous puns.
Let's kick some ice.
Maybe Uma Thurman, attempting to be a retarded man's idea of a femme fatale.
Living in the shadow of the big bad bat. You don't need him. You're the star.
And yes, granted, it makes sense you'd make an assumption like this, but Batman and Robin was idiotic by design. Director Joel Schumacher, patron saint of the 80s backdoor shenanigans boom, taking more 00 and 7, if you catch my drift, than an entire San Francisco Pride Parade combined, freely admitted to the film being little more than a toy commercial. A whole lot of bright colours and goofball hijinks to sell a wave of action figures to the snot-nosed brat demographic. At no point did this film attempt to be anything serious, groundbreaking, compelling, watchable, and at no point did it expect you, the viewer, to treat it like it was. So yes, while it does absolutely suck, looking at it from a relative perspective, it succeeded in its cash grab goals, even with the disappointing box office revenue at the time.
If there's anybody watching this that, let's say, loved Batman Forever and went into Batman and Robin with great anticipation, if I disappointed them in any way, then I really want to apologize, because it wasn't my intention.
A box office weak enough to put Batman on the big screen on hold for 8 whole years. And speak of the devil.
You are in hell, little man. And I am the devil.
Here we are. Batman Begins. 2005, the early days of the gritty, grounded, tortured soul reboot. Bruce Wayne is back in action, with an actor who actually hit the gym to convincingly play a heavyweight martial arts master who beats criminals to a bloody pulp most nights of the week. What a novel idea! Trying to actually look the part of the superhero you're paid a fortune to play. These days, that of course seems like the norm, thanks to the MCU Chris's, Henry Cavill, pretty much any major leading superhero man these days, bar of course Robert Pattinson, who seem to think adopting the thin, work out twice a week or so maybe, on a busy non-stop work schedule of yours truly, would somehow be acceptable for Bruce Wayne. Now, Batman Begins was a simpler time, as the superhero movie boom that came to dominate blockbuster cinema was still largely in its early days, with Sam Raimi's first 2 Spider-Man films, you know, the ones that don't seem like a total parody,
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
and famed chicken lover allegedly Bryan Singer's X-Men flicks garnering significant critical and commercial success. Good stuff. Batman Begins hit a lot of the right nails on the head, introducing viewers to a more serious, psychologically complex, humanized Bruce Wayne. We follow him through his formative years, from the tragedy of his parents' deaths, something that has now been depicted a good 6 or so million times, all the way through to his extensive crime-fighting training abroad, where he eventually blows up the home of his mentor because apparently executing a murderer is just too far, bro.
I'm no executioner. Your compassion is a weakness your enemies will not share. That's why it's so important.
Pussy.
Sure, I'll put this criminal scumbag behind bars where he's a burden to the average taxpayer, something a fully loaded billionaire like myself doesn't really have to worry about, but executing him? Oh no! Heavens to Betsy, I could never follow through on being judge, jury, and executioner. Instead of destroying a man's entire home, a simple no and a quick runner might have sufficed. But anyways, let's also just remember him blowing up that house likely caused the deaths of many of Ra's al Ghul's men. It is Ra's, apparently. And Batman also kills Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight, with good reason. He's saving Jim Gordon's son, and considering the extent of Dent's facial injuries, he would have died from a massive, pus-heavy infection within a week or so anyway. But all the same, he sent Dent to the grave, and we're just expected to turn a blind eye to this flimsy, often broken, moral principle of his. Disgraceful. Oh, but this isn't even the dumbest scene, by the way. Let's actually cut to the real deal. Right here! As you can see, Batman is spotted by that inbred monster from Game of Thrones. What's the big deal? Nothing stupid here. Someone could spot him at the right moment if he's out using people's homes as his own personal bouldering gym in the evening, I hear you say? Sure. Batman stops. He eyeballs Joffrey, and Joffrey spells out what he already knows.
It's you, isn't it? Everybody's been talking about you.
If you know it's him, why are you asking? How many other people are out and about in $1 million plus armor, a high-tech cape, and a bat mask? In a time where the news keeps mentioning a Batman on the loose. I mean, come on now. Of all the things to ask the guy if you saw him. And then we get to the real kicker. Joffrey is worried about his clout at school. No one's gonna believe he saw the Batman. Tough luck, kid. That's what someone with half a brain might say in the Dark Knight's shoes here. Instead, Batman throws over a piece of his tech, one of his countless gadgets for Joffrey to do show and tell with in class tomorrow.
The other kids won't believe me.
Now look, at a glance this is just meant to show that Bruce Wayne can be a nice guy. Joffrey was out on the balcony because King Robert was drunk again, and shouting at Cersei, as Jaime stood by awkwardly, not sure which one to draw a sword on if things get too heated. The kid's having a rough night, and then he gets the wild moment of meeting Batman for a quick few moments. Now, despite having his whole life handed to him via his mammoth inheritance, Bruce Wayne is perpetually traumatized from that time some penny-pinching weasel gunned down his parents over a wallet and a pearl necklace. Right in front of him. And that is a shame and all, but frankly, sad boy Bruce does not appreciate just how lucky he really is. Many of us would love to have billionaire parents who are removed from the equation at a relatively early age, leaving us all of their stuff without being around to project their endless insecurities and failings onto us, ruining our teenage years and in general just getting in the way. And being an embarrassing, authoritarian nuisance who has the gall to wonder why we don't speak to them all that much in adulthood. Moving swiftly onwards, here Wayne, still very much in touch with his inner youngster throughout the film, clearly feels some sympathy for the dreaded boy king of King's Landing. Oblivious to the fact that this horrible, twincest abomination is among the army's worth of antagonists to have caused an on-screen Sean Bean death over the years. And in the heat of one of his sad boy moments, Batman throws away one of his countless toys to make this kid's day. Here's the thing, realistically speaking, this decision will go one of two ways. We know Joffrey's parents here are unpleasant, that his loudmouth father is clearly aggressive and struggling with the old anger management. If Joffrey comes back into the home with a high-tech military-grade gadget in his hands, the old man's going to want to know what's up. He's probably going to take it off his son right then and there. I think we all know the score here. It's a bad neighborhood. Joffrey's dad is an angry drunk. He probably got laid off from the factory or wherever it was he worked, and now he's at home all the time, drinking like a fish. What little patience he had wearing thinner by the day, all while his nagging wife is on his case about getting another job and how stressed she is about the mortgage and all that nonsense. He's had enough. It's only a matter of time before that father starts crossing lines, and it's a scary, dangerous household to live in. He sees that gadget. Where'd you get that, you little brat? And the rest is history. Maybe he tries to sell it off at the pawn shop, PAWN thank you, for a quick buck. Or maybe he sells it to the Gotham Post, again, for a quick buck. An easy headline. My son met the Batman. Either way, the result is the same. Batman's tech is out of his hands, and someone's going to do the due diligence and trace that hardware back to Wayne Industries. And wouldn't you know, Batman just cropped up in Gotham soon after Bruce Wayne made a surprise return after years in obscurity. Coincidence? I think not. The other option heads in the same direction, eventually. Joffrey goes into school. Hey guys, look what the Batman gave me! School bully guy catches wind and steals it from Joffrey, probably after shoving him in a locker or giving him a swirly or some other such sadistic cruelty that reminds us all how casually evil most people are when left unchecked. School bully goes home. Parent sees the gadget. You get the idea. Either way, the trail runs to someone, whether in the media, the police, or indeed in organized crime, getting their hands on that gadget and doing the necessary homework to begin piecing together Batman's fairly obvious secret identity. And here's the thing, as shown in Batman Begins and most iterations of the character, Jim Gordon is prepared to bend the rules of the GCPD to work with the Caped Crusader to clean up Gotham. That's all well and good, but he's the minority. Most of those cops, either because they're taking mob money on the down low or because they just can't stand some costumed vigilante doing a better job of catching the bad guys than they do, are going to crack down hard on arresting Bruce Wayne and throwing the book at him. And even with all that wealth, Bruce Wayne's looking at prison time unless he flees the country pronto, or is mysteriously found hung in a holding cell with a corpse that looks suspiciously fake. Anyways, the Batman's in the big house, probably Blackgate, surrounded by crooks who now know his whole thing was beating them up, many of them likely there behind bars, specifically because of him. And it's at this point Zack Snyder's wet dream could finally come exploding into reality. You see, back when the Snyderverse, a world of brooding anti-heroes and muted color schemes, where Superman did more collateral damage than 15 9/11s, and Batman just could not get enough of that whole homicide thing. And the Joker for some reason was riffraff. Back then, Snyder, in his desperation to have the darkest, most badass, edgelord, heavy film universe ever, said anything horrendous could happen in his movies to any character. In fact, it was quite possible that Batman could wind up in prison where, maybe, well, let's just say a certain bar of soap would get dropped. Okay, so that's the general joke about this comment. Old Zachary, the genius behind such gems as Sucker Punch and Rebel Moon 2, The Scargiver, was promoting his film adaptation of Watchmen at the time. That film where Snyder didn't have time for a lot of key plot points from the comic or that giant fake alien that lands in Times Square, but he did have the time to pointlessly draw out a couple of fight sequences and have some hopeless prison inmate get his chubby bingo wing arms power sawn off. He explained how Watchmen had a lot more room for real-world lust and cruelty and maturity than the average, more conventional superhero comic would dare provide. And essentially, in a bleak world like that, well, Batman in the big house could end very badly. And that brings us back to Batman Begins, where Bruce Wayne has thrown his entire life, his double life, away to hand Joffrey, not quite a Baratheon, one of his toys, and for all of his martial arts training and intellect, Bruce Wayne is still a rich, pretty boy, all alone in a hellish concrete compound, surrounded by his enemies. It's gonna get messy. You may well be picturing it, a little something like Rorschach's brief run behind bars.
None of you seem to understand. I'm not locked in here with you.
You're locked in here with me!
Unfortunately, as a big, purple, environmentalist freak once said,
Reality is often disappointing.
numbers matter, and showers are no laughing matter. And you know, the thing is, once that happens once in the big house, well, that's that. Everyone knows you're never looked at the same way again.
Someone's gonna teach you manners, Vernon.
Yeah, well, it ain't gonna be you, Bragg.
Oh yes, any fear or respect the Batman once had probably left with the baby batter he had to fart out on that fateful day in the Man-Lover Penitentiary. Shocking stuff. So let that be a lesson. When you have a double identity, don't go sharing your stuff with any dumb rando on the street, just because you felt a little sorry for them in the moment. And some will say, but Batman did time in a prison early on in the film, and his fire exit was never turned into a front door by the other inmates. That is true, yes. But he was not Batman then. There was no specific target on his back, and he was also bigger, taller, stronger, and better trained. than pretty much anyone in that prison, and he makes an example out of one of the fully grown guys there before beating up some of the others as well.
You are in hell, little man. And I am the devil.
That's all well and good, but we're talking about a Gotham prison now, full of actual physical threats on his level, all now with a major target painted on his back, as I just said. I'm just repeating myself at this point, in a way that nothing, nowhere dump of a jail from Bruce Wayne's travels early on ever did. Never had that kind of challenge for him, no siree. Now, on a more serious note, you get this a lot in these kinds of movies. These days, obviously, many superhero flicks are written specifically for kids and adults who collect Lego and action figures, who escape from reality through the relentless consumption of what the TV has to offer for people younger than themselves. Adults who are still kids, basically, on the inside. And that might sound lame to you, fair enough, but hey, in an important lesson for all politicians out there, just remember, it's better to be a kid on the inside than to be inside a kid. And because a lot of kids like superheroes, some out-of-touch rich geniuses in the head office decide the kiddies must be pandered to. Relentlessly. It's not enough to just watch the film. The impressionable young viewers must have a self-insert to relate to. Someone in their own age bracket who gets to interact with the hero so they themselves can daydream about meeting the hero. Not daydreaming about actually being the hero like kids of old did, oh no. You can't have the younger generations dreaming above their designated future roles of wagey butts, oh no. You must instill from an early age that sense of being the friend, the observer, separate from the action, unimportant and irrelevant. You see, back in the day everything was R-rated and still marketed towards youngsters anyway, as much as the adults, who had popcorn flicks they could actually enjoy properly. Little Timmy and Jimmy were running around with their RoboCop and Predator action figures, and the world was a much happier place. Now though, no. Everything has been infantilized, and it gets worse every damn year. The world is becoming more and more like Japanese daytime TV. But 20 years ago, Batman Begins gave us a subtle yet important example of just how ridiculous and narrative-tainting this need to cater to Rugrats can really be. And I was a child once, and I distinctly remember most of us hating being pandered to, and instead gravitating towards darker, more mature, or well, mature in a child's eyes at least, stuff. And in Batman Begins, despite it being on the surface thoughtful and more grown up as far as takes on the Batman mythos go on film, with an interesting, poignantly acted, sensitive, troubled Bruce Wayne finding his footing as a crime-fighting hero in the crime-ridden slums of Gotham, we still get a little something of this pandering to brats nonsense. And this is the beauty of such scenes. They force you to either nitpick, like someone speaking right now might have just done, or check your brain at the door and watch it like you are as dumb as the kiddie audience in question, jarring the whole film in the process and its overall tone and storytelling quality either way. Now, this is just one example, an especially offensive, plot-hole-laden example, but just one all the same. Look no further than Iron Man 3. The trailers promised us all a very serious, epic, unexpectedly dark threequel, where Tony Stark would collide with Osama bin Mandarin. Instead, what we got was a midlife crisis action comedy, where the Mandarin was a hoax.
Just a role? The Mandarin, see, it's not real.
Sort of like the guy he was blatantly modelled on aesthetically, and Guy Pearce was the actual villain.
Guy Pearce. Did you also, by the way, tell the press that a year after we shot L.A. Confidential, you flew to Savannah, Georgia, while I was shooting Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, just to spend time with me?
So long, gay boys!
What utter nonsense! Where Tony Stark, the most brilliant mind in all of the MCU, is an inept buffoon and his girlfriend, that big bird goop vaginal steam cleaning conscious uncoupling nepo baby twit, Gwyneth Paltrow. Gwyneth please no more like, gets to the final round of ass kicking in the film while Tony watches on like the damsel in distress idiot he's become. That film was an abomination, a key sign in what was to come in the world of low-stakes comedy slup in the MCU. And among the many eye-rolling tonal misfires prevalent throughout the movie, we have Iron Man befriending not quite Iron Lad for a sizable portion of the film. Turn back the clocks to 2008, and while Tony Stark did have a sense of humor, the stakes of the original Iron Man film were presented as high, and the dramatic value was there. From the sad death of Jensen, to Iron Man taking down MCU's version of Al-Qaeda, to fighting Jeff Bridges to the death. The action and dark moments were allowed to breathe. Here, despite Iron Man having PTSD from his near-death experience in the Avengers, and despite a bizarre terror group running roughshod in the States, everything's just kind of funny. Or at least trying to be, which is even worse. And lacking his suit due to narrative contrivances I can't be bothered to recap here, Tony Stark engages in some Home Alone hijinks with Patrick Wilson's son in those Insidious movies. It's all in good fun. It's every dorky boy struggling to reach puberty at a standard age's dream, meeting a superhero and being his useless kiddie pal, a self-insert from an audience demographic not even present in the writer's room. And again, all of this coming off the back of a marketing campaign that promised a dark, full-circle finale for Iron Man, a film that ends with him seemingly retiring the Iron Man suits, only to then be Iron Man from the get-go in Avengers 2. Throwing his delightful rich guy superhero life away for his secretary, only to have it again, and mention in passing he's not adding pepper to his corn dog anymore in Avengers 2. And that stupid kid is an excellent symbol of the inconsistency throughout that whole film, everything from its bipolar tone to its uneven, messy narrative that other writers largely tried to forget had ever happened. Shameful. Shane Black just taking a hot, runny, steaming dump all over Jon Favreau's pretty damn good work on that character. Or how about the not particularly amazing Spider-Man 2? Look at this idiot! This moron! Are children, or any age, any human being, old, young, middle-aged, whatever, is anyone this delusional? How many little brats would seriously try and stand toe-to-toe with an enormous, robotic rhinoceros man played by Big Fat Liar Guy? And for a second, again, in theory, all these little boys who love Spider-Man, which is fine, I liked Spider-Man growing up. We had the Tobey movies that were actually good back then.
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
Anyways, all these little boys who wish they were Spider-Man despite he's being broke, orphaned, constantly in danger, constantly hurt, struggling to maintain a job. All that stuff. This boy in this movie represents them. Again, the logic being all the kiddies will more fully immerse themselves in the thrills and spills of the film, and demand to buy toys and other such money grabbers of it shortly after the end credits roll. And of course, before this kid can become the squashed puddle of raspberry jam we're all deep down morbidly curious to see Rhino turn him into, we get this.
Hey, Spider-Man.
Yeah, thanks for stepping up for me. You're the bravest kid I've ever seen.
I'm afraid not, kid. You're not brave. You're just a retard. Let's think logically. Spider-Man might have been busy. New York is a big place, full of crime. What if Shocker was robbing a bank on the other side of the city and Spider-Man was there instead? What happens then? Beyond, of course, this kid's criminally negligent father doesn't seem to be in the picture, getting to find out what minced son for dinner looks like. Ridiculous. A forced-in crack at pulling the heartstrings from a movie with 100 different plot threads designed to set up sequels that would never happen. Trying to get all sappy because Gwen Stacy died and now Spider-Man has to do his thing, or be blamed by parents for a copycat kid's unfortunate, but somewhat amusing death potentially occurring. Bad film in general, bar the leads doing good work as Peter and Gwen, and this is one of the lower examples of its many, many low points. Or how about, and this is the last one for now, how about the unforgivable Mustache Mountain of Joss Whedon's opening scene in his intensely homosexual Justice League cut? What a crime against cinema that was. The whole film, of course, the whole film is just insulting. It's one miserable weirdo who couldn't be trusted alone in a room with a young Michelle Trachtenberg, apparently, taking out his rage over Avengers 2 on a DC project.
In the second one, the job just got harder. Oh, I have all these restrictions, but I also have all these guidelines.
Sending Ray Fisher into a nervous breakdown he's never come back from, and ensuring Zack Snyder's vision of a cuckold Superman never came to live-action fruition. The whole thing is an utter catastrophe, a complete insult to DC Comics, films, viewers, film in general, superheroes in general, the fact so much money was wasted on it. A total crime. Frankly, something that should have been investigated. That $300 million could have gone to any old, actually constructive thing. And one of the film's many issues was Henry Cavill being forbidden from shaving his Mission Impossible mustache for the reshoots. And this opening scene, little flashback scene, kind of, because Superman passed away at the end of Batman v Superman, sociopath Superman destroying Metropolis and quite understandably being antisocial and self-absorbed, is suddenly Mr. Nice Guy when a whiny-voiced Munchkin wants to ask him some questions.
Can we ask you some questions? It's for our podcast.
Well, in that case.
How many people that you saved have you saved?
What?
Does your thing really stand for hope?
Yes, it does.
But it looks like an S.
What?
Yes, it's meant to. It's meant to wind like a river. It comes and goes.
What?
A man I knew used to say that hope is like your car keys. Easy to lose. If you dig around, it's usually close by.
What absolute drivel!
What's the best thing about planet Earth?
That dark side will destroy it, hopefully, given his biggest foe is whatever the hell this thing is meant to be. Right off the bat, you're in the cinema. I mean, I'm not. I'm not in the cinema. I'd know better than to buy a ticket to that film. In no way, shape or form did I go and see both that and The Last Jedi, which came out around the same time. No siree, no. Not me. Definitely did not lose many precious hours between those two backdoor violations of blockbuster cinema. Anyways, you're in that cinema, you, not me. And you know, the moment that terrible kiddie actor voice comes whining into your ears, you know, as a CGI Henry Cavill whose face is half PS1 graphics now, spews nonsense from his toxic Earth father who encouraged him to not embrace his powers or save the world or any of that other stuff he has the capacity for, you know, with this scene, that you've made a dreadful mistake going out to the movies today. Again, kids ruining stories run by adults. Sure, they might be fun stories for kids, but most younglings would rather just watch the heroes doing cool stuff and going on actual adventures anyway, rather than pandering to them in cringy little cracks at syrupy sweet moments. Ultimately, this is an extension of a threat to cinema. A severe one that has been growing immeasurably since the early 90s. Busybody, miserable parents wanting to project their sad lives as owners of kids they wished they hadn't had onto everyone else. You see, it is a parent's job sometimes to enforce what their offspring can and cannot do as they're growing up, but apparently preventing them from watching content that might be inappropriate for their age range is just too much responsibility. So instead, everything across the board must be dumbed down and infantilized for their convenience. Because, heaven forbid, little Jenny and Danny accidentally watch a gunfight in an R-rated movie or something. No, to prevent that, R-rated action must be off the table, for everyone, forever. Batman Returns, a very entertaining if rather silly follow-up to the classic 1989 Batman, was an example of this, and it wasn't even R-rated. An action-packed, imaginative effort with colourful takes on Catwoman and the Penguin, as well as Christopher Walken being Christopher Walken, the true highlight of the film. Frame to frame, the movie does not have a dull moment, and it neatly showcases Tim Burton's stylish, oddball take on the character and his mythos. But because the film was a little dark in tone, you know, like Batman usually is, this happened.
It was very violent. It was a total attack against kids, the whole movie. Everything that kids love was being used against them.
Now clearly this blatantly gay kid was given this script to memorize by his evil, anti-free speech, anti-freedom of expression, cummy freak parents, because no kid talks like this. Most of them, bar the soft ones like this little brat, are gonna love the fact the film's edgier and more violent than expectant. They'll feel all cool and grown up getting to watch it, when still, ultimately, it is just a goofy superhero flick. In the years since, the concern of having more gay kids crying on TV over some action scenes or confronting plots and themes in movies that ultimately make money off the back of the adults buying tickets for it has led to where we are today. At the commercial level, 9 times out of 10, humorous, if you can call it that, low intensity, low IQ, slop. Basic plots, basic drivel. Back then, these busybody parents, these PC do-gooders, these censorship freaks, they were just fighting the war. You fast forward to today and it's clear, they won.